I'm Toy Walker,
Hi, I'm Lonnie Walker.
and welcome to Way of the Walkers. So, babe, how
Uh,
are you doing?
I'm doing good. So
You
we're
look
on
good.
our, sometimes that comes easier to other people's. But anyway, we're here continuing our month, Autism Awareness Month.
Yes,
And so we have a very, very special guest with us
very,
here
very
today.
special guest. I may or may not have spoken about her in detail last episode. And today we have her. We have Miss Rachel with us. Yay!
Hello.
Hi, Miss
I am
Rachel.
great. I'm happy to be here.
And
Thank you for inviting me.
yes, I think I'll never stop calling you Miss Rachel.
And I'm okay with that.
Okay,
I'm okay with that.
good. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. So we have your son who's sitting here with us, Mr. Jonah. He
Yes.
wanted to come and see about podcast life.
Yes.
And
He was excited.
he said it was a little bougie in here, but I'll let it pass.
So can you tell us when we met you, what you were doing, and then what you're doing now and what you specialize in?
I can. And actually, you guys are one of my first set of parents. So I teach 3, 4, 5-year-olds with special needs. And so when I first started my journey, Lillian was in my first class. And so it makes me feel kind of old, but it's okay. Yeah, I got into special ed. It's my passion because I have a cousin who didn't get the education he deserved, and I wanted to make the difference in at least one kid's life and, that was kind of my mission and my purpose. So this is year 19 in education for me.
Wow.
I stayed teaching that, and then I became an administrator for 5 years, and my cup was full of dirt, and so I went back to the classroom, and now my cup is full again.
That's awesome.
So-
And so when Lillian first started in your class, she actually had a teacher before you.
Yes.
And I think I mentioned in the last episode that the teacher was good enough. She was, very nice and personable and everything, but she really didn't have interaction with me as a parent. And I was very nervous about sending Lillian to school because she, of course, was like almost 4. She'd never been in school before. And she was also struggling. And so I felt uncomfortable her going to school, and then you showed up. And I could tell that you were different. And it changed the way that I felt about her going to school because you were very intentional about getting to know the parents and not just saying, hi, how are you? Really wanting to know the families that you served. And I thought, okay, but the one thing that I did think was like, she's so young. Like, she looks like she just got out of college. And you probably did.
I did.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, we'll see how this works. Because the lady before, she was much older. She was actually retiring. So the dynamic was so
So
different.
she was finished. She,
She
wasn't
was-
trying to get to know you. She trying to get out of there. Look, I'm on the clock. I got 2 more months.
Right. So I thought, well, we'll see how this works. And I liked your spirit. I just liked your demeanor and your ability to really interject yourself in our lives in an authentic way. It wasn't like you were trying to get in there to be nosy or to be loved. You know how some teachers want everyone to be like, oh, she's a great teacher. And it's not genuine. You just wanted to care for us. And gosh dang it, well, I'm already getting the don't look at me like that. And so I was so thankful for that. And so you said, because I was going to ask, what was it that brought you to the space of wanting to help special needs families, and have you always wanted to do that?
Well, when I was little, I either wanted to be a teacher, a preacher, or a lawyer.
Okay.
Those were the 3 things. And I honestly knew I wanted to be a teacher. I don't know, maybe when I was in high school. Like I started buying stuff when I was in high school
Really?
to save for, like, I would find stuff and like just put it in a box, you know? And so I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I knew I wanted to teach special needs because, like I said, my cousin, he's a few years older than me. And I remember trying to teach him how to ride a bike. And as a kid, you don't understand.
Right.
You don't understand that. Why is he a little bit older? He doesn't know how to do these things that I can do. And, you know, some people are good at explaining those type of things to kids and other people aren't. So I kind of had to figure it out myself and things like that. So I kind of got to watch. He lived in another state, so I only got to see him, you know, like holidays or here and there when they came. But I remember like, okay, let me try to teach you how to do this. Let me try. I mean, I even taught when I was a kid, try to teach my dog the ABCs. You know, like I'm telling you, I set up a library in the dining room with, I know it's outdating myself, a little card catalog, you know, make cards for all, estimation jars, bulletin board on the mirror. Like it's, yeah.
So that's always been in you.
It always has been in me. Yes.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
and even like in, once I got out of high school, like I taught like the preteen girl Sunday school, like different things like leading up to that.
That's
So,
amazing. So when you went into college, were you taking classes for special needs?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that was my track.
Okay.
So I was a little bummed when I did student teaching because I just wanted to do it in special ed, but they're like, no, you have to do gen ed too. And so I was really trying to work the system because honestly, I wanted to teach 6th, 7th, 8th grade, like junior high, life skills or developmental or whatever. Well, I graduated in December. Well, when you graduate in December, you take what job you get.
Right.
You know, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm sorry, you don't have what I want. No. So I interviewed for the PPCD or early childhood program, and I really liked it. And so I'm like, I'm not leaving this. Like I enjoy it. So yeah. So
And so that's how you got to the school that our kids.
yes. So
Okay.
when I first got my job, I was split between two schools.
Okay.
One school in the morning and then one school in the afternoon.
Oh, wow.
And so that was a little challenging. And then there was more kids at the school where Lillian was at. So then I was there full time.
Okay.
So I finished out that first year, like kind of like helping, you know, like we kind of worked together and trying to set up my room and stuff. And then it was that next year that Lillian, you know,
Came in there.
yeah. So
So you came to the school. I could tell that you were different. And you had interaction with me. And I think more, only when Lillian was at the school, we started to do arts. You were very intentional about helping me understand what art was and the process and everything. And so by the time Layla and Lonnie Daniel started, I was kind of more equipped to endure the process. What was it that made you want to help in that way? Because no other teacher, because over the years, you know that we've had several other teachers because we have 3 kids with autism. What was it that had you do that? Because no one else has ever done that.
I guess for me, because kind of like when I told you, if you remember from the beginning, I'm like, okay, like this is my kid and you are my parent. Like I'm taking ownership. Like I'm treating her like my own kid.
Yes.
And so it's like kind of like we're family now, if you want it or not. Like this
Right.
is how it
and
is.
it was absolutely true.
And so that's how I like to interact because I remember I still tell parents this, like I'm going to be straightforward with you.
Yes.
I want you to have a clear picture of what your kid's doing. So I'm not saying, oh, it's great, and we go to a meeting and you get a laundry list of how terrible your kid is.
Exactly.
And so
No, we've dealt with that. We've dealt with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's been a lot of times. Oh, he's doing fine. This, that, and the other. Especially with LJ when he started at that other school, and then they would be like, "Oh, well, we're having problems with him on this, and then we would go, "Well, wait a minute. You haven't been communicating this to us. Y'all were very good at telling us, oh, he's fine, he's fine, he's fine,' and then we get a list of all these things that are going on with him."
Right.
And we're like, well, why haven't y'all said anything?
Right.
And that happened a lot.
Yes.
and I'll come back to this, but that actually happened to me the other day. I was in a staffing, like, and again, and I'm still fighting for my kids, not my own personal kid, but my kids, my school kids, that I was, blindsided in this meeting because the kid was having some kindergarten time, and of course I haven't heard anything, or I'll hear something here or there, and they give this laundry list of things that like, well, he, like all, and I'm just like, I felt like a parent in that situation
Right,
being
right,
blindsided.
right.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, that just happened, I don't know, 2 weeks ago or something like that. But I don't like going in places feeling blindsided and just like speechless. I like to be prepared.
Yes.
And so to me, I feel that that's my duty. Now, I don't know any other teacher who does it, but to educate you guys, because y'all need to know what your rights are. You need to know what the process is. You need to be able to walk into a meeting, feel comfortable sitting down, knowing what the process is, what's going to be said to you, and already prepare for any questions that you have, not sitting there like, what did you just say to me? And then
Exactly.
just say okay because you think that the school has your best interest. And that's not always the case because usually there's funding and all this other stuff. So that's always been my goal is like, no, you need to know what's going on with your kid, what your rights are, how you can fight for your kid.
Yes.
Yes, I need to keep my job, so I'll tell you how to do it the right way.
Right.
And I always say, if you throw me under the bus, I'm going to call you a liar to your face.
Right.
'cause I
And
need my
she was like, listen, I'm going to tell you these things, but don't put my name in it. I got it.
You did your research.
Listen, exactly.
One of the most frustrating things about the whole process is that they give you the list, everyone's blindsided, and then they're like, "Oh, do you have any questions?" We have a lot of questions, but we don't have the time to go over that because especially Latoya was very, very, very good at if there was a problem brought to her, addressing it at home.
Yes.
A lot of the behavioral issues, when you don't know about them, one, you can't correct them. And we want to sit down and explain, okay, we understand that you did this, but we need to make you understand that that's not okay, especially with LJ. The running out of school, we found out in the art.
Uh,
Where did it cut?
Whenever you start talking.
Oh, then good. I ain't gonna
What
forget.
happened to the plug? Let me double check it.
this happens sometimes. You just
Technology.
roll with the punches.
Technology.
Gotta love it. Love it or leave it.
That's why you gotta have somebody watching it.
Right, because we could have been finished and been like, nothing was recorded.
Yeah, let's start over. Okay.
And nothing was recorded.
Something good will come out.
All right, here we go. So start back where you was at, where you left off.
All right.
said-
Oh, I was talking about the arts and blind sides.
Yeah. How it happens a lot.
3, 2, and 1.
What happens a lot is we go to the art, they give us a long list of things that's going on with our son, and it's things that we didn't know. So for example, one of the things we went in art, we didn't know that LJ almost every day was running out of the classroom. If we pull him to the side and like, okay, that's not okay, he understands he can't run, and then we can work with the teacher and the people that's over it. Okay, how do we resolve this so he's not running out of class? We didn't find out he had been running out of class every day until he ran out and almost ran out into the street.
Yes.
And then they called us and they were like, well, we just want to let you know, he's been running out of class. And today it got more serious because he almost ran out into the street.
And I remember that explicitly because I was at Randall's or Walmart. I was getting the groceries, and you know how they have the banks. And they had in the bank, there were monitors all around. And I looked up and I saw Sandy Hook at the bottom of the screen. And they're allowing the dialogue to come across. So I was reading it, and it said something about someone went in and shot up an elementary school. And my heart sank because, of course, that was a terrible time for our nation. And then I go home, and they call me, and they said that my child is running up out of the school and could be ran over by traffic. And it jarred me because I think as a parent, when you think of an elementary school, you think of safety. And then I saw that about Sandy Hook, and that was so devastating. And then hearing that my son was in real danger. And so that was the day I just went up to the school and I sat in his class for the remainder of the day. And I was like, y'all better not tell me nothing. Because if y'all can't keep my child safe, I'm going to keep my child safe. All day I sat up there.
I'm surprised they let you.
They let them, they knew better. They're like, no, wait a minute. She put her black mama hat on.
Right.
So we gonna let her. She a little different today.
Like, this isn't the normal
This
Latoya.
ain't the normal Mrs. Walker.
And that was one of the rare times I was home for that.
Yeah.
It just, and then what you said, the talking over our head.
Yes.
They're dropping acronyms and words, and I'm lost now. I understand that you equipped Latoya, so Latoya knew what was going on. But they're asking me, do I have any questions? I'm like, I don't even understand what you just said to me.
Right.
What does that mean? And then not knowing what's the recourse.
Yes.
What can we do?
exactly.
How do we
Exactly.
challenge this? Just like I told the story, we pulled LJ out of school, and he was out of school for 2 weeks, and they said they were working on something to figure out how to stop him from running out the class. And essentially, I had to go up there. No, I called them, and I told the lady, I said, if y'all don't come up with a conclusion, I'm going to go over y'all head, and I'm going to call. I forgot who it was. I said I was going to call, but it was going to be a problem. And she was like, oh, we're just waiting. And I was like, well, we've been waiting 2 weeks. I'm not going to wait no more. Y'all need to come up with a solution, or I'm going to make the call today. And then, of course, they called me at the end of the day. It's like, oh, well, we're going to have them do this and this and this. And we got it resolved. And then that's how we told the story, how we ended up at Niche.
Yeah. And so you coming alongside of us gave me a level of stability, because before I felt, it was like, I love to give the analogy of, you see a duck on a pond, and the pond is still, and the duck is just gliding on top of the pond, and it looks peaceful and wonderful, but underneath, his feet are going like this. Mm-hmm. And that's how I felt. And you came along and you were like, okay, this is what this means. This is what that means. And when they say this, they really mean this. And this acronym means that. And if you go to this and you look this up, and then this is your right, this is your right, this is your right. And it had me kind of like locked in like this, because I was like spinning. And then that got me to kind of like stabilize and to have something that I had a level of control, because I couldn't control that my children had autism. I couldn't control what that meant for them and their future. I couldn't control how I felt about it, because it was ripping me up inside. But I was like, I can control how I pour into them. I can control how I advocate for them. And so that was a beautiful gift that you gave me, and I know that you've given to countless other parents. And I want it, and I know I've said this probably 15,000, 11 million, trillion times, and I will continue to say, I thank you and I honor you. I appreciate you. I don't think you understand how valuable you are because of the dedication that you have, not only for the students, but for the families. Listen, this woman, when she said that we were her family, she meant it. She has been to birthday parties. She came to when Lonnie baptized our kids. She was at the baptism when Lillian was playing flag football when she was a 3-year-old little cutie pie. She came to that. She's babysat our kids. I started a nonprofit. She came and she supported that nonprofit. She means it. She means it. And I often think about, how do you do it? I know it's through the power of the Holy Spirit, because having the wherewithal, having the organizational skills, having the heart and the kindness to pour, because you have a life. You got a life. You are a teacher. Being a teacher is enough. But the time and the effort that you pour into really having purpose in what you're doing, going above and beyond with excellence, it baffles me. And showing up for these parents, literally showing up, it's just amazing to me. It's amazing. And every time I turn around, you do something else. And I'm like, Lord, who is this woman, she's like a robot.
Well, thanks. I'll take those
Take
praises.
it, take it.
It's just a passion, and I mean, God gave it to me.
Yeah.
You know, but I remember it was funny because even before I had Jonah, and I'd always talk about my kids, and people are like, "How many kids do you have?" And I'm like, well, they're not like my kids. They're my students, but they're my kids, you know? Because I would talk about them all the time. I would just be like, oh, well, my kids did this. Because always my thing is I want people to know what my kids can do. Because they always think what they can't. And I'm like, let me show you what my kids can do. And so that's why I feel like I'm always having to fight for them, which I shouldn't have to, you know, but that's always my thing. Like, wherever you set the expectation, that's where they're going to rise. Because I've seen it. Like, you can say, oh, these sweet kids, they have XYZ. I don't care if you have XYZ. We're going to get here. I'll give you the support you need to get here, but I'm not lowering the bar for you just because you have a label. No.
Yes.
We don't have time for that.
And that was something I loved so much about you because I had that mentality too. I would always push. And when you were like, but, and you always were trying to level your students up. You never stopped. And you never allowed them, like you said, to have that as a crutch. You know, you're like, okay, yeah, we'll work on that. And when we overcome that, we're going to overcome the next thing.
Right.
And I love that. I love that.
Well, I remember, and it's funny because my memory's terrible, but I always remember you guys, because I would always talk about, I'm like, these parents are awesome. Like, because I'm like, they have 3 special needs kids. I said, however, they work with their kids, they push their kids, and they do the work that needs to be done to get them to where they need to be. And I still feel that, you know, because sometimes I still talk about you guys. I'm like, well,
Don't
you know,
say that, I'm gonna cry.
y'all are still my parents because I still refer to y'all as, I mean, y'all are my friends too, but I'm like, y'all are still my parents and those are still my kids, even though they're grown now. But because I remember, and I even remember with Layla, because I was a little bummed. I was excited that I was getting her, but then I don't know if you remember, because I'm like, man, I wish she wouldn't have been in that other program and I had an extra year with her.
That.
So,
talk about that program.
But I remember that day that you found out that she was going to come to me, and you were really upset. And I'm like, okay, tell me what you're feeling. And then I remember I gave you a hug, and I said, look, this doesn't define who she is.
Yes.
It's just a stepping stone to get her where she needs to get to.
That's right. That's
right. And I told you it was going to be okay,
Yes.
you know, and then I got little LJ, you know, he's a firecracker.
Okay. And that's what I would tell people. This is what I would tell people. I'm like, okay, you've had Lillian and Layla, but LJ is coming. LJ is coming.
He is different.
Don't try
Don't
to
do
define him by his sisters.
No.
He's different.
Well, and you know, I never, because I'm one of 3, right? And I'm the baby, right? So it was always like, if a teacher had my brother and my sister, it's like,
right.
well, what is she going to be like? You know,
Yes.
I never did that. But I also knew too, like, I wasn't worried about your kids because of the type of parents you guys were, because y'all worked with them. I could tell you, hey, do this with them. Like, I need you to follow through on this, and you would actually follow through on it. Because I am a firm believer that if school and home work together, then we can push forward.
Absolutely.
If it's, you know, you don't know what your kid does at school unless I tell you what your kid does at school.
Yes.
And so just kind of like with LJ with the running out, like my first thing would have been like, okay, number 1, why didn't you tell me the first time?
And may I add, LD did not run out of Miss Rachel's class, but go ahead.
No, he didn't.
No, he did. Miss Rachel didn't play that. But anyway, go ahead.
But because my thing is I always tell people up front, look, if you think I'm complaining about your kid, please, you know, or if you think I don't like your kid, let me know. But I want to be straightforward with you, because if I'm telling you he ran out of the room today, the next day he ran out of the room, when you told me that, I'd been like, well, what is he trying to get away from?
Exactly.
Like, what's going on in the classroom?
And that's what I kept trying to tell them.
But
I
that's
said, you
the
guys,
whole point. They were so not prepared. They weren't paying attention, because the same thing was happening every day. That's why he's running out every day. He's not just, I'm sitting here, let me run out. No, there were different things. So of course, the kids laughing, playing, talk too much, and then once he's tolerated what he could tolerate, then he's shooting out. And so that was the other thing. So we get into so what's going on with the class. Now it didn't help that the teacher that he had, it was a first year teacher, and she was pregnant.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And what's the word I want to use? He was very charming.
He's very charming. We know he's very
We had
charming.
the example of I think one day maybe she had her hair down and he was like, "Your hair is
No, okay.
Yeah,
This is
tell it.
this is what the boy did. Just to explain just a little bit about this little boy.
Hey, swag.
So he
Swag.
do got swag. He has daddy swag now. So, but he know it. He knows he's
Oh,
very
yeah.
smart. And so the lady had some fingernail polish that he didn't like, and he told her he didn't like it. She took it off. She wore her hair up in a bun. And he said, "This is a little 5-year-old little child. I like her
5-year-old
hair.
grown man."
I like her hair down." She pulled it down. And I said, "This little boy running the school. Y'all are not showing him his place. You're allowing him because they didn't know what to do with him. And they just were like, oh, well, let's cater to him. Maybe he'll behave today." No, you need to check him. Like, I would go check him. If I knew when it was him putting on, and I knew when it was his autism, and he was being triggered or whatever. And they called me up there, I had to check him. I had to pull him up, like snatch him up for real. Little boy, if you don't go sit down in the classroom. And so I loved how you didn't cut for that. You knew when it was like, okay, let me give it a little leeway. But when it was time to correct and to hold people accountable, oh, Mr. Rachel was going to get you.
Because that's why I said, I'm like, when there's a time to love and play on you, I will. But when it's time to work, we're going to work and we're going to get it
Exactly.
done.
That's
so
right.
it's one of those like, you'll know I love you, but we're going to get this done because I'm not playing all that extraness.
Exactly. And I thoroughly appreciate that because that's how I mother.
Yeah.
I think that's how we got along so well. And why you're like, oh, I could get with this one because I was like, what do you need? I will handle that.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you need, I'll handle that. I really wanted you to give some tips because this is Autism Awareness Month. And I know you work with all different needs. But I really wanted you to dive in and talk about the things that, like, say you're a first-time parent or a parent having a special needs child for the first time, and you're lost, you're confused, you're afraid, you're devastated, and you don't know what to do. What things, like the first couple of things that they need to do in order to help their child?
I would say, first of all, if you recognize that there might be something not, I don't want to say normal because nobody's normal.
Exactly.
But something that doesn't seem right with your kid, even if you only have one child. Like if they're not talking and that should be like a developmental milestone or, doing different things, like dive into that. Don't ignore it. Because talk to several parents, and pediatricians like, oh, they'll grow out of it.
That's exactly what they told me. And I was like, no, there's something else. There's something different.
And so, of course, no person is like, oh, I would love to have a special needs kid.
Right.
Nobody wakes up saying that, please, Lord, give me a special needs kid.
Right,
He gives you what you need,
Right.
So being equipped with that and realizing it, because early intervention is key. It is key. And the longer that you put it off, because again, kindergarten isn't required. Like in Texas, it's not required.
Really?
So you could wait and put your kid in first grade thinking they'll grow out of it, or I don't want a label. Let me throw this out there. I'm gonna get out a little.
Tell the people what they need to know.
So there's nothing wrong with having a label.
Everything is labeled.
And
everybody has labels.
And it's funny because God told me the other day, Rachel, you need to write a poem about the title is going to be labels. Because again, there are so many labels. Because you have husband and wife. That's a label.
That's what I'm trying to say.
I mean, you have the labels of, fat, skinny, not good enough. Like there's all these labels, and now you have a clinician telling you, oh, your child has autism. Okay, well, what are you going to do with that? Again, that doesn't define who you are. If you allow it to define who you are, then it will.
Right.
And that's also what I tell parents too. If your kid has autism or some other kind of, disability, don't be like, oh, honey, you have autism. So they'll use it as a crutch.
Yes.
Don't enable them.
Yes.
No, what are you going to do about it?
That's right. That's right.
So it's setting those high expectations for your kids. Again, having, give them the support that they need. Don't like stress them out where they just, get burnt out, but you'll learn their limits. On how far you can push and when you need to back away. And just because they're cute, because I've had plenty of cute kids. Like, okay, you're cute.
Ours included.
Oh, they're cute. I remember I was like, well, Lillian's going to be a model and a little cheerleader when she grows up. I remember because she just had this look. I'm like, cheerleader when she gets older. Good luck, guys. Like, sorry, Lonnie. Watch out. Prepare yourself. But you have to see through that cuteness to get through, that's why I'm like, I'm going to love on your kid and you're cute, but your cuteness isn't going to get kind of like you were telling the story about LJ. Like, okay, you're cute, and he obviously got over on that lady.
Absolutely.
You can't allow him, even if you feel a certain way, you can't let them see it.
That's right. That's right.
But just pushing them and setting those expectations, but get that help, especially, because for the school district, and again, I'm not saying, oh, the school district is wonderful, but you can get free help for your kids to get that education. And
the label allows that. And that's,
right.
And exactly.
And, I get on my soapbox and then I get off track.
Right.
Let me go back to the labels thing. Once you're, having a label allows your kid to get that extra help.
That's right.
Where there's these kids over here, they don't have a label, they need help and they can't get it.
That's right.
So they're over here floundering, these kids are, because usually those are the middle of the road kids or the little bit lower ones, but they don't have a label. And then they're scraping by.
That's right. That's
and I mean, if families have resources to get them extra help, then great, but oftentimes that's not the case. And so, and then if your kid's going to college, that label doesn't go with them. If they want their professors to know, then that's their choice. Mm-hmm. It's not like they have a, label on a folder they're carrying to college.
Or their forehead.
Right. It's like, no, then it's their responsibility to go to the counselor for the disability and say, well, I advocate for themselves saying, I need these accommodations. I need these things in college. That doesn't go with you.
That's right.
Or go to a job saying, oh, I have autism. Here's my application. No. So those parents who don't want their kids to be labeled, they'll only know if they're labeled if you tell them they're labeled.
Right.
So that's, in my opinion, that's something parents need to get over themselves on that because they don't want them labeled. And it's like, you're actually doing a disservice to your kids by not getting them the help that they need.
Absolutely.
And the longer you wait, there's all that missed time that they could have caught up.
Absolutely.
So
one of the things that you touched on, which was very important to me, was early intervention. Mm-hmm. Because I understood that was the thing that was going to change their life. Because if I met a lot of parents that did not want to face the reality of the diagnosis, and they don't get the label because it's painful to hear that your child is going to struggle in this situation. And but I wanted the label because I needed them to get some help. And so tell parents about how important early intervention is.
Okay, can I use your kids as an example?
Sure.
Okay, well, kind of going back to Layla, right? She was in another program where she was getting help, but it was only 2 days a week for 3 hours or something like that. And I'm like, man, I want to, not literally, but I'm like, I want to hit her hard. I want to get her going because I only have a short period of time with them. Depending on where their birthday falls, I could have them for 2 years, I could have them for 3 years, and I'm like, I want to hit them because I remember, I'm like, I can't tell you the next teacher they're going to get.
That's right.
I can't tell you the expectations they'll have. I can't. So I'm like, I want to hit them as hard as I can to get those foundations in there. But if you wait, of course, and I tell parents this too, you do things for your kids, right? Because you're their parents. If they're hungry, if they need to be picked up. It's just kind of something you do as a parent.
Right.
And I'm like, and I told a parent this the other day. I'm like, do you want to be picking your kid up and putting them in the car when they're 20 years old? Make them get in the car. Does it
That's
take a few
good.
extra minutes?
That's good.
Yes, but they need to learn those independent skills. And oftentimes, too, if a parent has a special needs kid, they're like, oh, well, we need to help because they. No. Treat them just like any other kid. Make them get in the car. Because I'm like, you don't think your kid knows anything and they're manipulating you and running the show.
Listen.
They're smarter than what you think.
Listen, I've seen that. I've seen that often, and we're not immune to that either, right? Because there's a certain prick that you have in your heart when something like that happens with your child. You have a special needs child. You become a little more marshmallowy, you know. But it is so smart for you to tell parents that it's okay to push your special needs child. It's going to help them. I remember talking to one of the parents. I was part of the nonprofit. We were at your house. We were upstairs in the game room, and she has two children. They're twins. And she was talking about her twins and how she didn't want them to suffer. And I said, I felt the same way. I did not want our children to have to suffer and have a better life than we did. And I said, but I had to think about how suffering has given me gifts, how suffering has prepared me for life, how suffering has put me in a place where I need to be in order to keep following my destiny. And so I said, it's okay to suffer. God says that we are going to suffer, and you just need to be there to help when they're going through the suffering. And she just burst into tears. She was just crying and crying and crying. So we need to push our kids. We need to have them, I guess, suffer, because that builds a level of resiliency and being able to overcome things. I could tell he about to say something. I know my baby. I know my baby.
I know it says suffer well. I'm probably not the best person to talk about suffering well because I don't like to suffer in anything.
I don't think anyone likes to suffer.
No, I don't even the positive spin you just put on it.
It's like, no.
It sends chills. But you know that life in general is tough anyway.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to know that your children are going to suffer in a certain manner. It's certain things that you can do and prepare them. School, you're teaching them different things, but it's tough when you know that they're going to have to interact with other people.
Absolutely.
And these other people have not grown. And these other people are ignorant of what autism is. And they ask ignorant questions, which I'm not going to say what the question
I
was.
feel that he in his feelings.
Well, about that situation,
Yes.
it's because a lot of people don't understand what autism is and they make assumptions. And then because you have that means they slide you to the right or to the left. And now, our children now 17, 19, and 21. So the school part in general is over, at least, to high school. LJ graduates this year. Just knowing that now they got to deal with the ignorance of other people.
The world. It's a different feeling that we have now. It's like it's a different milestone that we're facing.
It's a fear that you weren't thinking about because initially it's like, are they going to be able to learn everything they need, graduate? And now the graduation doesn't happen. Lillian graduated high school. She taking online courses. Layla graduated from high school, and she just graduated from Clarendon AR school. And then LJ's a senior. So now Layla's got a job, and so she's working with people. And I've been trying not to be, what's the word I want to use? I don't even want to call it helicopter dad.
You want to overstep, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't even want to say overstep. And I could be wrong, but what I'm trying not to do is I'm trying to not be her dad at this new job.
Because
'Cause
you know he is a presence, right?
so
You
I've
know
been
he
it's been taking
is.
everything in me not to walk up on them people and ask them a
Yeah.
few questions because a
Yeah.
couple things I don't want to say that it was shady. It was
We feel that
the
it wouldn't.
administrative side of this job has not been as smooth as I
And
would like it to be in because typically at a job they give you a schedule every week and things of that nature, and they've been doing some things, and so I've been trying not to show up and be like, hey, you're supposed to do this, this, this. If my daughter's supposed to work, and then also just dropping her off 7 o'clock in the morning at a restaurant not knowing who's in the restaurant.
yeah.
My daughter is a young woman. I know that there are men that work there. So it's been challenging not having them. I like to just say, feel my presence. Just not necessarily threaten them, but just kind of show me like, hey, I'm Layla's dad. If something happened, it's a problem you don't want to have. And that may be just whether your child had autism or not, but because we also understand that sometimes they don't understand everything. So Latoya is very good at asking questions like, how was work today? What happened? This, that, and the other. And then they'll say something and then
And I'll be
she'll
like,
catch it. She'll like, oh, wait,
oh,
what was that?
let me
Give
pull
me
on
more
that.
information.
Yeah. Hmm.
So now I think we do need to tell the interview story.
Okay. So.
Can I throw something in there real quick?
Sure,
Just a
sure, sure,
tidbit
sure.
that you had mentioned. So, yes, y'all are entering into a new stage in your life. So, in one big characteristic of autism is the social skills aspect
Yes.
and picking up on those social cues. So, that's something that I would focus on is just giving different scenarios. Like if this happened or if somebody says this to you and even kind of doing role play
Yes.
so that all of the kids get an understanding of like, oh, this isn't right. Or, because again, with that social piece missing, it's kind of like, well, I don't like what they said, whatever. But it
I
could
don't
have
know if
been
being taken advantage of. I don't know
right.
that they're yet.
So that would be like the new shift for
Yeah.
you guys is to teaching that piece because that's about the interacting with people and things like that. But
That's good advice. There are certain things that we are encountering that you have foresight about stuff, but you don't really know until you get into it on some things. And so this was a situation. Layla was at school. She just graduated culinary college from the best culinary institute in the nation yesterday. And before that, though, part of her being able to get the credits that she needed,
Right. So
she
she had
needed
to
to
do
get
a
a
practicum.
job and have, what do they call it?
They call it a practicum.
Yeah, the
She
practicum.
had to do a 10-week practicum, which is basically she has to go work at a restaurant or a place that bakes and cooks
Yeah.
for 10 weeks. That's kind of like the last, and then once she completes that, then she graduates.
Right. And so she had a job fair. We got information. We started to go on interview. So this is the first interview for Layla. And like I talked about, I like to push our kids. And so in this new area of life for them, I did not want to go with her into the interviewing room. And I was like, okay, Layla, you're going to go and interview and ask you questions and prepped her, try to get her ready. Okay, cool. And it was a school district. It was a school district that she was interviewing for. So I felt a little like, okay. She goes in, she does the interview. Wasn't that long. She comes out. Okay, let's get in the car. We're going. And I do the questioning thing. How was the interview, Layla? What kind of questions did they ask? Did you feel comfortable? Like, whatever. And so she said, oh, it went really well. I said, oh, that's great. And I said, so what kind of questions that stuck out to you that you liked? And she said, they asked me what I like to do. I said, oh, well, that's really nice, Layla. What did you say? And she said, well, I said that I love to dance in my room and I love to sing. And I said, well, that's nice. And because they said, tell me more about yourself, right? And then she said, and I told them that I have autism. And I said, okay, Layla, because I don't want them to feel ashamed of it, right? I'm like, it's nothing, you don't have to say it, but she felt comfortable saying it. And she said that the interviewer said, do you take medication for that? Thank you for the face. Thank you for the face.
what kind of medication would she take?
And
Like,
I was like, the ignorance of the question, first of all, because tell me,
Wow.
we saw all these commercials. All these, I can't even think of the drug names of these
I do, but
commercials.
we don't want to say it
And
because
I've never seen a commercial talking about if you're suffering from autism, take this. These are the side effects. Like, there's no medication. So the ignorance of that question, and then the straight illegal part of asking somebody if they take medication for whatever.
Right.
And I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was illegal because this is the first time that I've ever been in this situation. But I'm so glad I'm talking to her about it, right? And asking her. And when she said that, my spirit kind of fell. And I was like, it hurt me. Like, I was like, oh. And I said, what happened again? And so she repeated it, the exact same words. Like, how very, like,
she's a
okay.
robot.
This is
Like,
what happened.
yes.
What's wrong with it, Mom?
Right. And so I said, okay, Layla, well, thank you. And what else happened? Not to bring like alarms to anything, because I don't want her to feel like she did something wrong, right? So get home, and I'm still just like, that didn't sit right with me. And I will go upstairs and tell Lonnie. So this was a conversation that she had, and Lonnie said, that don't sound right. I said, I know. It's really making me grieve inside, like that pain of that. And so he's like, no, that just seemed like they ain't supposed to be saying stuff like that.
Yeah, I was like, they
And I was
can't ask
like,
you that question.
you know what? And so I pulled it up and I was like, oh, this is against the law. And I was seething. And then I put my black mama hat back on.
Well, no, she put her mama hat on. Ain't gotta be black.
Listen, I'm just trying to say. And so I first of all, I was so hurt because I felt like that if I would have gone in there, that
You would have got
person-
arrested.
Oh, listen,
Well,
that's true.
They would. Well, first of all, they wouldn't have asked
They
that
wouldn't have asked
question.
that. And I'm
'Cause-
like, you're taking advantage of my 19-year-old daughter who didn't understand. Ooh, baby.
Because I told Latoya I was gonna take her, but I was gonna go in there.
Yeah, he
I wasn't
don't
gonna
say
let her.
that. He don't-
I don't trust nobody. I'm like, I'm sitting back here in the back. She gonna answer questions, but I'm here monitoring. They wouldn't have asked that if we were there.
Well, so, and how I see this, and no, I'm not happy that happened. However, it's a learning opportunity.
And that's exactly how we used it.
Right,
That's
'cause-
exactly because we wouldn't have known otherwise. And we did the role play thing.
Okay.
We did the explanation of, Layla, you didn't do anything wrong. So, but if, you don't have to say that if you feel comfortable saying you can, which they already knew about that. But then we said, but these are the things they're not allowed to ask as an interviewer. Their job is not allowed to ask these questions. It's against the law. And so we had a whole thing about that, and baby, but listen, we went up there though.
So it
Like,
went.
you
It
remember when
went
he
like
said
this.
he
She
wanted
was
them
like,
to feel his presence?
I was
Oh.
like, she called them and they kind of gave the runaround.
Yeah, I said,
and then I was
said,
like,
if I don't get somebody on the phone right
go up
now,
there.
I'm coming up there.
And so we
and
ended up having to go up there.
Posse up.
And then they were still trying to get a runaround. And then at some point, I was like, we need to see somebody like now.
Yeah.
Like, we've been here 20 minutes. Cousin, auntie, somebody who in charge we need to see. And then they got us to somebody. But these are the things, this is the new thing that we're
Reality.
going to deal with now. Now that LJ's graduated all out of school, they're going to start working. So now they're going to be dealing with ignorant managers. They're going to be dealing with ignorant coworkers. And that's something that we can't protect them from. And it's a new challenge. And so we have to ask more questions to make sure that they're understanding everything that goes on. Like we talked about Layla, just because they want to put you on the schedule don't mean you have to go in. Because she's like,
they're just texting and being like, oh, can you come in tomorrow?
right.
Get a
So
schedule.
let's just
That's
say
not how it works.
if-
Exactly.
if they were
and that's what we're
open-
teaching them, because we wouldn't have to say that and teach them that had it not been happening, with Layla in this new
Right,
job.
right.
And so and I'm going back to, okay, what are the things that I went through as an employee that I can tell them about? This is what you shouldn't have to deal with. This is what it's supposed to be or whatever. So
So just like Layla graduation was Friday, and they put her on a schedule for Friday. I said, Layla, did you tell them that you were graduating? She was like, yes. I said, you need to text them. And see, this is where I'm like, don't worry about it. Hey, my daughter's Layla Walker. Did y'all get that she said she want to graduate?
because she
Why y'all
told them
put her on the
twice.
schedule?
She told them
So
twice.
I'm like, why y'all put her on the schedule when we already told you she's graduating, so she's not working Friday? That's what I want to do. Then they're going to feel me. But that's not what's best. So I just told Layla, I said, Layla, text them that, hey, you can't work Friday because of graduation. And I didn't want them to have her come in after. I want her to be off
Enjoy her time.
so we can
Yeah.
spend time with the family and celebrate her graduation. And so we're dealing with that. And then I don't want to say I'm concerned. I wonder how the interaction with the employees and how all that's
Yeah.
going. And we want to make sure that they're not going to take advantage of her, not on our watch. They're not going to call her in last minute. Like I was trying to say, on a Saturday, they'll text her Saturday at 9 p.m. Oh, we need you at 7 o'clock in the morning. No. She don't have, like, no, we need more notice than 6 hours that she needs to come into work. I said, you need to give her a work schedule, not only because she's your employee out of respect for her, but out of respect for we got to take her and pick her up. We got things to do.
Right.
We blessed that our schedules is flexible, but they don't know that because
That's
they
not
don't
the
know
point.
us.
It's
That's
not,
not
the
the
point.
point.
Exactly.
So-
She needs to be treated just like everybody else.
And that's the point, because I was going to say, I bet everybody else up in there got a schedule.
Well, and it's so this is my thing. Like, number one, empowering the kids, and I think that's everybody, every parent, regardless of whatever.
Absolutely.
Number one, they need to know who they are and they know whose they are. And nothing else matters.
I love it.
And they need to stand firm to that. Like, if you feel something's not right, then you say, that doesn't sound right to me. Or don't
Exactly.
talk to me that way.
Exactly.
So empowering them, and you can be empowered in a respectful way, but to let them know, like, you're not going to run over me. You don't, and I know it's hard as parents because you want to protect your kids even when they're older, regardless of whatever. But, empowering them, and then, hopefully you planting those seeds and then getting to see them do it, like
Yes.
stand up for themselves. And it's like, go.
Yeah, that's amazing, but I kind of look for those opportunities.
See, that's a problem he deals with.
It's not a
He's
problem.
ready. He always ready.
It's not a
And I-
it's not
and
a
I
problem.
try to-
It's a gift from Jesus that I have, and that
know
I
what? We
need
gonna
to
leave it at that.
protect. I
We
need
gonna
to
say it.
protect
And
my wife.
that's right.
I need to protect my baby girls and my son.
That's right.
It's a duty. It is my responsibility.
And I
Not
think
on my watch.
beautiful.
Now, I have to handle it with the appropriate amount of
A
aggression.
thuggery. Yes.
But yes, I'm called to that because I don't want to miss an opportunity. I don't know if you want to call that an opportunity, but I don't want to let something slip through the cracks that needs to be addressed. I'd rather pre-address it than after address.
Well, I think your thugginess is sexy. So anyway, sorry, Jonah. So we got about 8 minutes left. I wanted you to give any takeaways that you have, just to empower parents, and anything else that you can.
Okay, I mean, I could talk for hours because this is my passion, and so that's why it's hard for me to pick. But like I said, early intervention is key. Number two, ask a lot of questions. This has always been my thing, and it
Be
doesn't
the
even.
squeaky wheel.
Yeah, well, and it's also if you don't ask, your answer's no. If you ask and you get a no, it's the same thing you started with. So ask anyway.
That's good.
And that's with anything.
That's good.
And if you don't be scared to ask a dumb question.
Yeah.
Because again, especially if you're starting on the journey, you don't know what all these acronyms mean. And that was something that I've always done is, yes, I could use these educational words and stuff, but if you don't understand it, what is the point in me doing it? Who am I trying to look fancy for?
Right. That's
This
good.
meeting is for you guys to understand what's going on with your kid. So ask questions. If you don't know what that means, what does that mean? And if something doesn't sit right with you, then you don't have to agree to it. And that's something too that, especially if you go into a meeting, you don't really know anything, say you don't really have a support group or a knowledge, and you just, okay, you don't have to say okay.
That's good.
If it doesn't sit well in your soul, that's always my indication. If it doesn't sit well in your soul, say, we need to table this meeting and come back another day when I have more information.
And parents having the understanding that they can do that is so powerful. Yes.
And that they have a say, because there's only 2 voting members in that meeting, the administrator and the parent. And you can disagree.
And they never tell you that.
They don't.
Parents, do you hear that?
So you have a say, and you should have a say in your kid's educational experience. And because I always ask parents, well, what do you want me to work on with them? And parents are usually like, well, I don't know. What do you think? And then I'll share, well, this is what I think.
Yeah.
But if it's something I can incorporate, whether it needs to be an IEP goal or just something I want to,
What does IEP mean?
Individualized education plan.
Right.
See,
And it
just did it.
I'm sorry.
Drop the acronym, like, what?
I know what
like,
it means
that's
because
not-
I'm like, get out of my head.
so yes, an IEP is an individualized education plan, and that means that it should be individualized to the kid. And oftentimes, and of course you won't know this if you don't know any of the other parents or whatever, but sometimes those goals are
generalized.
cookie cutter goals,
Generalized.
and the only thing different is the kid's name
Yeah.
on there.
They plug your child's name in.
Yes, and that's not right.
And if you look at the goals, if your child is not struggling in that way, don't say yes. Say, Layla really has that mastered. Let's think of something else. I noticed at home this, and this. Is that something you guys are noticing at school?
Right. And and I'm going to throw this out there too, is really you should be contacted prior to the meeting.
Yes.
For everything to go over. So if I say, they need to work on their alphabet, we'll just say that, and you're like, they know the alphabet, they know the sounds they're reading, why are we working on this? That should be a conversation we have. So because sometimes, and this happens, sometimes kids do stuff at home that they don't do at school, or vice versa, or if the kids can recite the ABCs, or you show them flashcards A to Z in order, they know the letters.
Right.
Well, that doesn't, so there's different perspectives of it. And again, if you don't know, you might think it a certain way, but it needs to be explained a different way. And it's like, oh, okay, well, no, if I did it out of order, then they wouldn't know it. So, but those are conversations that need to be had. Don't just agree on it. And something too, like seeing goals come from another district, any person should be able to pick up that piece of paper and say, this is exactly how I should work on it with this kid. If it's not clear, it can't be done. To me, if I don't know, then you definitely don't know what's supposed to be going on with this kid.
That's good.
And I've questioned that before. If a kid moves from another school or somebody else writes to school, I'm like, what does this mean?
And the goal is basically what you guys are trying to work towards.
An area of deficit.
Right.
There should never be a goal if it is not a deficit. If it's just a blanket, okay, let me throw this out there. There's something I call dead-end goals, right? A dead-end goal is where you just work on it and there's not a stepping stone to go after it. So say identifying colors, right? Where can you go after that? Nowhere, right? Now, so say if you're doing identifying numbers, right? And the next thing would be one-to-one correspondence, then addition and subtraction. There's stepping stones to go. So if there's a goal written and there's no stepping stone afterwards, that doesn't need to be a goal.
It's a waste of time.
It can be worked on in the classroom, but that doesn't need to be something that you're beating the horse for an entire year.
Right. And it's a year long.
Well, and let me throw this out there that parents don't know too. You can call a meeting whenever you want. Don't be that parent where you're calling it once a month. But if
you said whenever we want.
you can, but it's you got to find that balance because you don't want to be oh, these parents again, But by all means, if it needs to happen, make it happen, and don't let them push you off because that is your right.
That's right. You were those parents for a couple for Lonnie Daniel.
But if you have to be, let me say, you shouldn't have to be those parents.
Exactly.
Because everything should be done the right way.
Exactly.
You should know what's going on. You should feel comfortable with your kid going to school, know exactly what they're doing. But I want to throw it out there too. If your child has mastered one of those goals, not all 5 or whatever they have, but say they mastered the math goal, you should come back to the meeting or a phone. It would be I can't think of the word right now. You don't necessarily have to come in person, but you could have it over the phone saying, hey, they mastered this goal. We would like to work on
Something else. Put
yeah,
something
something
on
else.
there.
Are
That's
you
right.
okay with it? An amendment, an IEP amendment. So it's basically amending what was the plan. That can be done, and that's what should be done. And it should also be done if they're not making the progress needed, because every grading period you get that progress report. Now, if it doesn't show mastered on there or shows like the progress that it is going to be mastered in a year, you should come back too, because we need to set our kids up for success.
Right.
So the person who came up with that goal either shot too high or they shot too low.
That's good.
And so come back and reconvene, or if you see, hey, we're already in the second grading period, we only have 2 more left and we're not even to 50%, we need to change this. Or like, what are y'all doing? And don't be afraid to ask to see the data. You have that right.
That's
So
good.
the teacher should be bringing the data to the meetings. So if you say, well, show me that, they can do this, they should be able to have it right there and produce it.
That's good.
Like, and it's one of those, like, I don't care what you think, show me the proof.
Show me the receipts.
Right.
Okay.
It's not like, oh, well, this is what I think. No, show me the data. If you can't show me the data, then we can't move forward with this goal.
Oof, you are thug.
So
I love it.
I don't play when it comes to my kids.
So we're gonna go a little bit over, but it's okay. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we're good.
No, we're
We're
good.
so good.
As we get ready to wrap up. So first, I want to say, you said when we were talking in general, you were like, you knew that we were great parents. My wife was a great parent. She was on this from the beginning. I didn't understand what autism was, and so she carried them. I basically would say I just got involved for real, the last 6 years since I've been home. But she took it. She was creating all these learning tools, all this stuff. She was working very well with you. So thank you for being a great mom and advocating for your kids. Thank you for just coming beside her and pushing her, basically giving her the game free 99, loving our children like they were your own. And then she took what you taught her when we left you, because we left you first, second grade? The kids? Kindergarten,
Yeah,
and then they start going to the other school. So she had to carry that. So she had to move some furniture around in them other rooms because those people were kind of like, oh, well, and she's like, no. She didn't say your name, but she was like, no, you have to do this. Even when we took LJ to niche, I forgot that teacher's name. She was really good too, but you gave her the skills and the understanding of how to advocate for our children a certain way. And the results are what they are now. Because Lillian started later, she's where she is. Layla and LJ, they're all going to be out of high school in May, into college. And we just want to thank you for everything you've done for our family and our children, and for being my wife's friend. I don't know if you're mine. You're probably associate. That's a whole nother podcast of how you felt about me when you met me. But go ahead,
That's typically how people feel about you.
Wait, hey.
That is not
That's
true.
that's
And you
not
know what?
everybody.
When I said parents, she spoke very highly of you.
All the
And
time.
even when you came into town, I mean, I knew you were present. Is what
Yes.
even though you weren't physically there during those times, I knew that y'all were
Locked in.
yes. That's just how. So I know you're giving her credit because she was present, but you were also supporting too of
Thank
her
you.
and your kids.
You hear
so.
that? Thank you for saying that, Miss Rachel.
So.
I did want to talk about one other thing. I remember being in the art with you, and I think it was for Lillian. And one of them ladies didn't come prepared, and she tried to do the little switcheroo kind of thing and she ended up crying because I got with her. Do you remember that?
I don't, but
See?
now I want to remember.
See? Now they say that I'm a thug. She got the
Listen.
teacher in there crying.
Listen, like I said,
Come prepared.
I don't play with that. Rachel empowered me. I was like, wait a minute. And I was fire rapper.
Rapid fire.
Rapper fire.
Fire rapping. That's a whole other rapping.
Anyway, doing all peppering her with questions and basically show me when she didn't have it. And I was like, oh, you showed up to the wrong meeting today, boo-boo. And I didn't mean to make her cry. I didn't, but she did. And I was kind of like, oof. but I had to advocate for my babies, and
Well,
I've not let up from that.
And the thing is if you do your job, I just sit back and eat my popcorn, because I've already explained everything to you. There's no surprises on my end. You already know what I'm saying, so I just sit back and I don't know
Like,
what.
listen,
She's
she's
talking.
talking to her. She ain't talking to me. Well, we wanted to thank you so much for coming, taking the time out. I already spoke about how authentic you are and genuine you are. When you say that you are a part of our families, you really mean it. And I hope God blesses you tremendously because you are walking in the pathway that He laid before you. And I'm so excited to see what else He's going to do with your obedience. And so I love you, and and I see it, and you don't get emotional. You don't. But
You made me cry once.
I know. I know. You're like, you'll never forget that. You're like, dang it, you were so mad. You were so mad. But I just, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you, not just for me and my family, for all the families that you've touched.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be a part of you guys' family. So, and being amazing parents that I can y'all are the standard, that I would hold people to. I'm like, well, these parents, I'm like, well, they have 3 kids with autism and they XYZ.
Okay.
I don't know.
Come on, come with it.
Okay.
Well, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this series talking about autism. And if it was something beneficial for you, I hope you share it with people that you find worthwhile. And we want to say goodbye. Thank you for watching.